Hi everyone, this is what happened to me when I got government housing part 36. And I was living in really hard circumstances, which obviously was because of the assaults, the property damage, the fact that I had a breakdown, the fact that someone who I believe was the respondent actually shot at my window, being yelled at by the police, being stonewalled and uh refused assistance and so on and so on. But what I also wanted to talk about was that when those things are happening to you, you also have to continue on with the other parts of life, especially when you're single. I can't speak for anyone else, but I can talk about my circumstances and hopefully, the circumstances of other people who are single or in the same situation as me. But basically, I wasn't born in Victoria, and I have lived here for many years, but I actually don't have any other relatives. I don't have any brothers and sisters, and I don't have any other relatives living in Melbourne. So, and as I'm a single parent. So, the day-to-day tasks that I had to do kept going on, and on the days that I was able to do them. But then there are other things, like for example, because I'm a single parent on welfare, I had to work 2 days a week as a volunteer at a secondhand store. And I didn't get paid for it, and my pension would have been cut off if I didn't do that volunteering. I had to do that because of a program that's run by the Australian government, and they make people on welfare work a certain number of hours a week in return for their welfare. And I still had to participate in that program despite the circumstances that I was living in. But the truth is that I actually loved working in the secondhand store. Um, what actually happened when I was working there is that I was able to see things, and I don't mean people because I never got to a point where I was able to get help from anyone, but I mean material possessions. I was able to see things that I couldn't have seen in any other circumstance. I couldn't afford to go to shops, generally apart from supermarkets and buy anything. But when I was in the secondhand store, I could afford to do things like buy a full set of books for my daughter, which was wonderful. So it did have its benefits. There was I'm not bagging it at all, but the reality of the situation is that when something is compulsory and when you threaten to cut off people's welfare if they don't do things, what actually happened is that I was placing myself in danger by leaving home, and maybe I wasn't able to heal from the assaults or to work on my case as well as I could because I had to deal with this work that I was forced to do. Um, so yes, I did love working in the secondhand store, but given everything that I was going through, it was very difficult to get to and from my job. And I was always so tired because the respondent kept hammering on my ceiling and I wasn't able to sleep. Lack of sleep was affecting my appearance, and there were some people who saw me and assumed that I was on drugs, which was hard to deal with. Although I can say that I'm lucky enough not to be on drugs, that doesn't change the fact that I was being judged. And my looks were deteriorating, and I was going without sleep. And all of that was affecting me socially as well as personally. And I mean, if you really get into it, that would possibly be one of the reasons why lawyers refuse to represent me. I don't know. Um, so I kept receiving phone calls from different mobile phones, and the callers didn't leave a message until the 3rd of the 11th, 2016. One of the callers left a message, and it turned out to be a police officer investigating a complaint that I'd made. After I received that call, I received another 5 calls from 5 different mobile numbers. But none of these callers left a message for me, so I never found out who they were. And I have kept those numbers and I can provide them if needed. The noise that the respondent was making was getting worse, and sometimes he would be hammering on my ceiling till 5 a.m. in the morning. And I still had to get up and look after my daughter, and I still had to work in the secondhand store. I knew all of this was changing my behavior for the worse, but I don't think I was conscious of how the lack of sleep and the assaults had affected me. I was still receiving calls from mobile numbers, and the callers were still not leaving messages. I didn't want to answer the phone because I didn't know who it was and I didn't feel safe. And in some ways, I felt threatened by everything that was trying to get into my home. And to me, it felt like these people who were ringing me were trying to get into my home, and I just wanted to keep them out. On the 7th of the 11th, 2016, I received an email from the inspector from the Victoria Police North West Metro region. He asked me to call him, so I rang the number that was provided and I left a message asking for him to contact me by email or by hard copy mail. I didn't receive an email back, but later that evening I got another call from a mobile, which may have been the inspector, but the caller didn't leave a message, so I never found out if it was them. As I've said before, I can't understand why the police want to deal with people with a simple phone call and won't follow up with a formal letter. If they had done this, it would have saved me a lot of worry and it would have allowed me to get back in contact with them. At night, the chemical smells coming into my unit from the respondents unit were getting worse, and I was feeling sicker and more exhausted every day. There were so many things that were dragging me down and so many responsibilities that I was burdened with. I was so happy when I first had my daughter, and now that all of this was happening, I just felt exhausted all the time, and all the joy that I felt about being a parent was being taken away from me.